are you talking about? Film's the greatest educational medium the world has ever known.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Teenage Golden Age, a podcast where we talk about old Hollywood movies from the perspective of the next generation. Today, we're going to be looking at one of the most famous detective movies, or should I say, detective series, The Thin Man from 1934, and talk about how it establishes the stereotypical detective and why it was so popular that they made so many more sequels. Before I go any further, make sure to follow our Instagram and TikTok where we post movie clips, podcast clips, questions, and more. Also, make sure to rate and review us if you enjoy the podcast and so more teenagers can discover old movies. The Thin Man is a 1934 pre-code movie that is directed by W.S. Van Dyke and stars William Powell and Myrna Loy as the famous Nick and Nora Charles. Basically, the pre-code era of film was the time before they created the Hays Code, so before 1934. And The Thin Man has many characteristics that are very pre-code and more relaxed, so that is really interesting to see. So basically, this movie is about a retired detective who, while spending much of his time managing his wife's considerable fortune and consuming quantities of alcohol, is asked to follow the trail of a missing inventor. Although reluctant to interrupt his holiday in Manhattan, he is persuaded to investigate by his wife's craving for adventure, and together they embark upon a case that leads to the disclosure of deception and murder. This movie was shot in 2 weeks, which was incredible considering how good the film is, and we are going to explore how this movie really created the stereotypical detective and analyze why this movie is so popular that it created 5 more sequels. I literally said this already. I love this movie, and it's just so funny and mysterious, and I love everything about it. And it's just really interesting because there are so many detective movies out there, but it's really cool to see one of the first talking detective films and see how so many other detective films were inspired by the Thin Man series. Let's first talk about the 2 main stars of this movie, William Powell and Myrna Loy.
Would you mind putting that gun away? My wife doesn't care, but I'm a very timid fellow.
You idiot.
Myrna Loy. After The Thin Man, I really fell in love with Myrna Loy, and the characters she played are just so funny, and she always plays kind of the strong, witty woman, and I think she's definitely an underrated actress, and I think she should definitely get more recognition for her work. She was extremely popular in the 30s after appearing in The Thin Man, but she never won an Oscar or wasn't even nominated. She was born in 1905 in Montana and made her first appearance on stage at the age of 12. Her father died in the influenza epidemic, and so she and her mother moved to California, and after going to dance and being on stage, she was discovered by a silent actor. She, at the beginning of her career, was, for some reason, always typecasted and played Asian woman, which was extremely racist and weird because she was not Asian, and it's just so weird how Hollywood, had to do, told her to do that, Myrna did recognize how wrong her roles were, and she tried to make it right at the time by researching cultures and trying to be placed in movies where she wasn't in a role with a different culture, and and she was also involved in a lot of anti-racist work later on, and she really couldn't control what role she got because being in a studio contract, you couldn't have a say. She later signed a contract, though, with MGM and started finding her niche, and after getting the role of Nora Charles in The Thin Man, she became a famous actress and did other roles besides appearing in the Thin Man series like The Liable Lady, The Best Years of Our Lives, one of my favorites, and Manhattan Melodrama. What stood out to me was she was very much a minimalist comedian, and performances were very subdued. She was really able to do so much with so little movement and expression. William Powell. William Powell is the face of detective movies of the 1930s, and he was born on July 29th, 1892 in Pennsylvania, and after intending to study law, he went to New York City to study acting in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Roberts. He started to work in vaudeville on Broadway and the Broadway stage in the 1910s, and in 1922 he started his Hollywood career playing in small roles. His career grew pretty steadily and he became a very big star, and I think he was mostly known for the Thin Man series, but he also did films like My Man Godfrey and Mr. Roberts and How to Marry a Millionaire. His career grew pretty steadily and he became a very big star. And also, fun fact, he married a lot of famous people like Carl Lombard, and he was going to marry Jean Harlow until she died, which is super, super tragic. Myrna Loy and William Powell did 14 films together because the studio saw that they had amazing chemistry on set, and their first actual film together was not The Thin Man, but Manhattan Melodrama. And I love how back then especially they really thought about chemistry, and when they saw two actors that had chemistry, they would put them together in many films, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, or Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart, and Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Myrna and William's relationship was a really solid one in which they both validated each other's opinions and respected each other. And I think that's why the Thin Man series really worked. How the Thin Man series really established the whole stereotypical detective. So we all know the stereotypical detective with the trench coat, the detective hat, the mustache, and the dog. Well, Nick the detective literally checks off all of these detective characteristics. I say detective so much in this episode. Not only does his physical appearance convey the stereotypical detective by his actions, when he searches with his flashlight in the dark to discover a clue, or has his dog beside him to find what's buried. Nick Charles additionally is the detective who can always outsmart all of the police and figure out who the murderer is before the amateur detectives do. Nick always dodges the bullet, shots at him, and never seems to get killed amongst the chaos he is surrounded by. You can see this kind of like in Indiana Jones or James Bond, for example, when they always seem to get out of tricky situations, and they always win. They both have this certain power and skill to outsmart everyone, and that makes them so special and unique.
Oh, I'm a hero. I was shot twice in the Tribune.
I read where you were shot 5 times in the tabloids.
It's not true. He didn't come anywhere near my tabloids.
Nick Charles also obtains that stereotypical detective personality when we see him at parties drinking and making good jokes. I feel like in a lot of detective stories, the detective always seems to have a good time while also unraveling a murder mystery. Additionally, the detective always has a beautiful girl sidekick, which in this film is Myrna Loy's character. She definitely is a great sidekick who can sometimes even outsmart the detective. I feel like in a lot of other detective films, the male is always the detective, and I feel like this film definitely contributes to this kind of part of the stereotypical detective. Unfortunately, I mean, now of course there are some female detectives, but I think majority of the movies still include male detectives, which is definitely really, really unfortunate, but a pattern in detective films. The biggest reason that this movie really embodies the whole stereotypical detective film is that in the end of every Thin Man film, Nick rounds up all the suspects in some form. In the first Thin Man, he does it over an evening dinner, and when he rounds up all of the suspects and puts them into a room, he slowly exposes the true murder, and it is such a classic scene that it is repeated like so many times in film history. Just that final plot twist or reveal when the murder is exposed is something that every detective movie needs and has. I think besides it being a great detective story, it follows the relationship between Nick and Nora Charles, and that is the main reason why it's so popular and why we watch it. The characters in this movie are the star of the show, and if you think people watch this film for the detective aspect, you are wrong. I was reading the reviews for The Thin Man on this great app called Letterboxd. Great for movie lovers, but anyways, all of the reviews were talking about how amazing the chemistry is between Myrna Loy and William Powell, and just like the banter back and forth between the two when they drink together, travel together, and make jokes about their relationship is priceless. The dialogue in this film is literally incredible between the two, and I love how in the beginning they make sure to drink the same amount of martinis, and they take care of each other after their hangovers. This film definitely has a lot of drinking in it, and I think that kind of adds to the character of this film and kind of the charm of it and just the silliness. And by the way, I will be posting clips of this film on Instagram and TikTok so you guys can really see the dialogue and how incredible it is.
Say, how many drinks have you had?
This will make 6 martinis.
All right. Will you bring me 5 more martinis? Leo, line them right up here.
Yes, ma'am.
People love, though, how unjealous their relationship is, and a lot of old films show marriage in a negative light and illustrate the depressing and trepidation of it all. And William Powell and Myrna Loy's chemistry really made their relationship really real. They match each other with verbal punch after verbal punch, and when one of them makes a joke, the other one responds with a joke back. This film just really celebrates the beauties of marriage and shows the enjoyable aspects of it.
Pretty girl.
Yes, she's a very nice type.
You got types?
Only you, darling. Lanky brunettes with wicked jaws.
My favorite scene in this film takes place in the beginning, where one of the girls, a part of the murder case, comes over to Nick and Nora's house while they are having a party, and while Nick is hugging the woman, Nora comes in the door, and this is when I expected for a whole cheating conflict to spike, but Nick makes a funny face, and Nora just responds by scrunching her nose, and they just laugh it off, and she offers her a drink. Just a side note, Myrna Loy scrunching her nose is literally the cutest, sweetest thing, and the scene is just so cute, and it just different from the stories where either the wife or husband thinks one of them is cheating when they are actually in reality they're not cheating. That scene is just really surprised me, and definitely when I first watched it, it was such incredible to watch that scene and be like, oh, that really surprised me, and I will definitely post it on my Instagram or TikTok. Now, this is one of the examples of why she was called, quote-unquote, the perfect wife. People thought that Myrna Loy was his perfect wife because she always went along with things and was never annoying or controlling like kind of the stereotypical wife is usually portrayed in old film. Everyone wanted Myrna Loy as a wife because she was always just chill. And also take the scene where William Powell is shooting the balloons off the Christmas tree and Myrna Loy is just sitting there unfazed. Myrna Loy kind of neutralizes William Powell's very extravagant acting with her almost minimalistic acting. You can see that this is an aspect that people love most about this film because I think you see more of them in the later sequels, and it's mostly about their relationship. In this film, there is a lot of characters, but like in After the Thin Man, the cases are more tied to their families, and so you see more of the couple. However, I think the real reason why people love this film has to be the dog who plays Aster in the film. He is a wired fox terrier dog, and he appeared in a lot of films in the 1930s, and he kind of just adds to the stereotypical detective and the charm of Nick and Nora's family. They treat Aster like their child, and I think Aster adds more silliness to the movie.
Madam, I'm afraid we shall take the dog out.
Oh, it's all right, Joe. It's all right. It's my dog. And, my wife.
Well, you might have mentioned me first on the billing.
Finally, I love this film, and I think an additional reason that it gained so much popularity is just that there is such a good use of suspense in this film, and like in a lot of today's films, I can really predict the outcome, but when Nick rounds up all the suspects to reveal the murderer, it's just so suspenseful and entertaining to see who is going to be exposed, and overall, I absolutely love the two, and I literally binge watched the five other sequels after I watched The Thin Man because I just loved the characters and was super invested in their relationship. A lot of sequels aren't as good as the original, but I feel like they are still really incredible and fun to watch and really hold up still today, and I actually think my favorite Thin Man film is the second one, which is After the Thin Man, because I don't know, it's just also so incredible, but all of them are really incredible. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Myrna Loy is actually one of my favorite actresses, so I really was excited to talk about her in this episode, and of course, I love the Thin Man series. You guys can watch The Thin Man from 1954 on any streaming platform like iTunes, Prime Video, and they used to have it on HBO, but I'm not really sure if they still do. You can actually watch films from the Thin Man series on YouTube. Some of them, like Shadow of the Thin Man and The Thin Man Goes Home, are both free on YouTube, so check them out. They're kind of like later in the sequel. They're like kind of like the last few films. And also definitely make sure to follow our Instagram and TikTok, all under Teenage Golden Age. And if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, definitely make sure to email us at teenagegoldenage@gmail.com. That's teenagegoldenage@gmail.com. Thank you guys again, and see you guys next time. Bye!